prices drop nearly overnight amid national
Manufacturing and shipping have often sees that businesses expect significant drops in consumer demand during the
As the world stays home, spending at restaurants, theaters, and sporting events has dropped, but consumer spending on home products and home improvements is surging.
Manufacturers and distributors deal with mandated shutdowns and worker illness. The supply chain is struggling to keep up with consumer demand.
Shipping ports are stressed, while truck driver shortage is driving up the cost of last mile delivery.
Retailers struggle as everything from toilet paper to microchips are in short
A
supply.
container ship has become stuck in the Suez Canal, obstructing one of the
Freight costs for imports have soared tenfold as supply chain issues persist.
Russia invades Ukraine. Expect transportation and energy costs to skyrocket.
While the COVID crisis fueled much of the disruption, it also exposed the underinvestment in the global supply chain infrastructure.
Experts point out that while the COVID pandemic has revealed weaknesses in our systems, businesses have pivoted quickly with new
States around the world are celebrating frontline
Over
workers.
quarantine, we have seen an exponential increase in telehealth appointments.
Manufacturers who were once making t-shirts and alcohol are now stepping up to make masks and
Because
sanitizer.
of years of research, the development time for the COVID-19 vaccine was cut dramatically.
Tonight, there is a glimmer of hope as vaccines begin to be distributed across the country and around the
Saying
world.
that the rise of buying online, in-store and curbside pickup has changed the way companies do business in mere months instead of
The
years.
hobby is now a new small business for many as thousands of people turn their pastime into profitable
Chains have started to return to regular business as industry partners collaborate to manage manufacturing and shipping with the changes.
Experts warn that a number of challenges still remain due to inflation, uncertainty in the markets and consumer demand, as well as continuing labor shortages.
It's quoted as saying, as the new normal becomes our normal every day, we should remember it was the strength, collaboration, and innovation of all of us that got us where we are today.
Now, please welcome President and CEO of GS1 US, Bob Carpenter.
We need more practice. Give it up for the GS1 Connect band. Okay, great. It's just not the same virtually, Michael T.
It's not.
It's not.
We're here, we're bringing
It's so great. This is some of the first live music I've seen since the pandemic. So it's just really, really wonderful to have you with us. And honestly, wonderful to have all of you with us this afternoon. So welcome. You know, watching that video, doesn't it feel like a century ago that we were together? 2019 in June in Denver. Or maybe that we've been through a century's worth of change in just over 2 years. The video we just watched was a stark reminder of all that we've experienced. Before the pandemic, the supply chain wasn't a topic of everyday conversation. But now it's everyone's conversation, from the boardroom to the kitchen table. And for most of us here today, it's always been top of mind. We've been collaborating to improve efficiencies for many years. Now the need is even more acute to transform our supply chains and become more resilient. But what exactly can we do to make supply chains work better? And that's what brings us here to GS1 Connect. So on behalf of GS1 US, I want to thank you for joining us here in San Diego. And importantly, I also want to recognize and thank our sponsors. Their support and advocacy are key to this event and the work that we do year-round as GS1 US. So, adapt. It's our theme for this year's event. It's what we've all been doing since 2020. And it's how we will continue to create value for our businesses and consumers. We know that consumers' expectations are increasingly changing in terms of how they want to shop, the trusted information they want, and the mix of items in their shopping carts. But we've seen firsthand that the traditional supply chain just isn't nimble enough to keep up with those dynamic preferences, or to navigate disruptions like the pandemic or the recent war in Ukraine. In trends like sustainability or the circular economy. We've also witnessed the impact of consumer sentiment on the supply chain. Listen, when people are frightened or when daily life feels precarious, consumer behavior can generate surprising levels of unpredictability between supply and demand. It's what prompts a run to the grocery store for milk, for bread, for eggs, anytime snow is in the forecast. So, what can we do to support a more dynamic shopper, increase visibility across the global supply chain, and better match supply with demand? And what does it take to have a business that can not only react to external events, but also sense and respond, whether it's a potential disaster or an emerging opportunity? It comes down to adaptability. At the highest level, I believe in an adaptability framework built around 3 focus areas. First, understanding what we can't control. Second, changing what we can control. And third, collaborating to strengthen all the links in between. So I'd like to spend a few minutes this afternoon exploring each of these areas, starting with the circumstances that we simply cannot control. No one could have anticipated the recent series of events. And in a perfect world, there would be no curveballs, or maybe we'd all have a crystal ball, right? But in reality, of course, we can't eliminate those externalities, nor the cascading effects that they create. We can only improve how we prepare. And psychology tells us that humans repeat patterns that have yielded prior success to create the illusion of control. It's uncomfortable to come to terms with a growing loss of control, both personally and professionally. But disruptions are inevitable, and some futurists predict they are likely to become more frequent and extreme. So we need to anticipate the unknown. The real possibility of a recession and the looming impacts of climate change are just 2 recent great examples. Consider rising sea levels, where roughly 90% of the world's freight moves by ship. Unless we take serious collective action, the effects of climate change could dwarf what we've experienced during the pandemic. Another force that's outside our control is regulation. Although we try to influence them like we've done with the Food Safety Modernization Act or the Drug Supply Chain Security Act, we really cannot control these regulations. And what about developing regulations on the horizon, both within and outside the United States? For example, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission recently proposed rules that would require companies to report greenhouse gas emissions throughout their value chain. And in the EU, they're pursuing an initiative for digital product passports that would achieve greater visibility for products in circulation, and a corresponding series of implications for almost any industry that's trading in the EU. As the world becomes more flat, we become more exposed to global regulations that simply exceed our span of control. And some disruptions like recessions, regulations, inflation, build over time. Oftentimes there's some ability to anticipate that impact. But the pandemic was completely different. It exposed what we simply didn't have in place to deal with chaos of that magnitude. And we believe pandemic-level events could happen again. So that's the first requirement of adaptability: acknowledging, imagining, and understanding the range of factors that are simply outside of our control. Preparing for what could lie ahead empowers us to go beyond a panicked reaction and develop an effective response that accounts for the unknown, whether an event is large or small. Now, I know responsive planning is extremely difficult, particularly if you're operating in silos or relying on manual processes. For example, if you don't have real-time inventory visibility or contingency plans for dealing with logistical bottlenecks, you'll be forced to rely on guesswork. And that leaves your business even more vulnerable to lost revenue, unsatisfied customers, or issues with product quality or safety. Within each enterprise, there's an opportunity to build a more accurate, timely understanding of how something could affect your business, so we can move beyond we think to we know. And that brings me to the second area of focus: change what we can control. You likely can't change the climate or geopolitics. But if we've learned anything over the last few years, should we commit to increased control over what we can? So, what can we control as a single entity? Building supply chain adaptability should be one imperative for us all, giving us the capacity to lead through a higher percentage of events. We've already seen some organizations do just that by investing resources to increase control of their supply chain. For example, companies have announced plans to minimize risk by diversifying their suppliers, examining the resilience of their entire value chain, narrowing the number of products they sell, building manufacturing back in the US, like Samsung or Intel, is just 2 examples, or by moving production even closer to the intended destination, even within the US. Some of the e-commerce giants are stepping in and buying their own cargo fleets to avoid bottlenecks and delays. Even before the pandemic, Amazon was chartering private cargo ships, leasing planes, and making its own containers. And for last year's holiday season, other retailers joined in, chartering their own vessels to bypass the busiest ports to get their goods unloaded sooner. Now, not every business can or must take those measures, but they can create better end-to-end supply chain visibility, not just to perform better in the face of a crisis, but also to capitalize on opportunities. Retailers, food service operators, and healthcare providers discovered that inventory accuracy is now a necessity, especially to meet dynamic fulfillment options. As consumers, we now expect the ability to choose whether we get our goods in store, curbside, or at the home. This is precisely why industry is increasingly investing in serialized item-level RFID. So a typical brick-and-mortar retailer averages about 60% SKU-level accuracy, 60. With RFID, accuracy jumps to 99%. It's becoming the gold standard for real-time inventory and supply chain visibility and other use cases like traceability, claims compliance, and more, especially now as costs have dropped for chips. Nordstrom and Walmart have publicly mandated RFID across many product categories. And Chipotle is piloting the technology for traceability of meat, dairy, and avocados from 5 of their suppliers. They're using serialization to trace food all the way from suppliers to restaurants so that they can respond to food safety or quality concerns. And of course, this kind of automation is even more valuable amid labor shortages and rising costs. So while many efforts are underway to strengthen supply chain visibility, a recent Bain & Company survey found that only 15% of supply chain executives have made progress investing in traceability technology and scaling it. We definitely expect these numbers to rise as companies invest in digital transformation, including data, analytics, and people. And in fact, data science jobs have grown by 650% in the last decade. And professionals with these skills remain in very high demand. Companies cannot underestimate the need for talent to convert all this data into insight. And Gartner predicts that by next year, at least 50% of large global companies will be using artificial intelligence, advanced analytics, and other new technologies in their supply chain operations. We're seeing countless use cases and evidence of AI adoption and other automation technologies. As an example, Kroger is partnering with NVIDIA on an AI lab and demo center for what sounds to me like an amazing example of innovation. They're leveraging computer vision and analytics to identify early indicators of deteriorating freshness. And they are using dynamic routing for last mile delivery to ensure freshness from farm to plate. Another surging technology is robotic automation, often within warehouses. Overall spending on robotic automation is forecast to exceed $51 billion by 2030. And robotic vehicles are being integrated into automated workflows, again, an important capability given the ongoing labor challenges almost any of our businesses are dealing with. AI, RFID, robotics, and other technologies, listen, they can be really exciting. But the advanced analytics and business value they unlock rests on good data, accurate, complete, master data. So recently we had a board meeting in Houston, and I was having a conversation with one of our board members in the CPG industry, and we were talking about talent, and he said, listen, Bob, I can hire all the data scientists we want, but if the fundamental data is flawed underneath what they're working with, we simply can't drive the ROI that we need. But the good news is that getting your master data in order is well within your span of control. And it's one of the most important investments you can make to understand the who, what, when, and where of any given product, so you can enable a digital supply chain and increase adaptability. Managing standardized, openly shared data in more forward-looking dynamic ways is becoming table stakes to compete today. It's a prerequisite for the digitization of your business, including the ability to use technologies that are accelerating both your supply chain and your customer interactions. And with a strong data foundation, your supply chain team can simulate issues and dynamically solve for them before they disrupt your business. Quality data is also key to optimizing inventory. Think about safety stock. If it's too low, you have shortages. If it's too high, it ties up capital and eats into warehouse space. Many of us saw the press release yesterday from Target and many other retailers that are dealing with too much inventory in areas that the consumer doesn't want. This is a real issue playing out right now with the retail community. The ability to evaluate inventory based on availability, risk, and alternatives is now critical. And clearly we need to move from just-in-time inventory to just-in-case inventory, which became even more apparent with the recent critical shortage of baby formula. We know that we can't control externalities, but we can clean up our own houses. Yet no organization stands alone. What if we could extend the control we create within our own companies to include our trading partners? Achieving supply chain visibility ultimately requires making these investments together. And that's because every supply chain gets stronger through effective collaboration, which is our third area of focus in the adaptability framework. Listen, collaboration isn't just a buzzword. It's the key to unlocking more control and value for your business. Successful collaboration around standards-based data gives us more confidence long-term. And without those standards in place, we lose control because we can't adapt. We saw this repeatedly over the past 2 years. Limited inventory visibility made it challenging to promise product to the shopper or conduct business online when in-store traffic ground to a halt. Remember the Ever Given? The cargo ship that blocked the Suez last March? It left hundreds of other ships stuck behind it and wreaked havoc on global supply chains. Those that knew which ships were carrying their cargo were able to quickly reroute shipments to minimize their vulnerability. The companies hit hardest were those that lacked visibility, the ones still relying on what I like to call an analog supply chain. So it affirmed once again that no company can control traceability on its own. Data sharing, industry standards, collaboration increases transparency for your company and the entire industry. Digitized, standardized supply chain data is also critical to realizing the potential for emerging trends, and there are many. For example, circular economy. Consumers today are environmentally conscious, no doubt. So it's no surprise that resale is growing 25 times faster than the retail market. However, creating a circular economy will require some of the most ambitious and innovative collaboration the world has ever seen. Collaboration can be accomplished in a pre-competitive space that leads to mutual benefits. It's how we get to effective traceability ecosystems while reducing costs for everyone. To be successful, you and your trading partners need to be able to exchange data easily and accurately. Your data must be captured, stored, and transferred using industry standards so that you as industry can speak the same language and realize economies of scale. This extends our concept of control through adaptability outside your organization to include your key trading partners. Collaboration is also critical to realizing the potential of technologies that I referenced earlier, like RFID, AI, robotics, or even QR codes at checkout. Today's problems, such as climate or food waste, they're complex and require greater cooperation across trading partners and regulators. But the good news is that we already have industry standards to help us. And it's up to you to activate your trading partner network differently to get the data right, put the standards to work, and achieve the needed transparency. Because when every link in the chain has reliable data, we can plan with greater confidence. improving data quality and supply chain adaptability so that we can be more competitive, more responsive, and more sustainable. It represents a massive undertaking, we get it. But honestly, the future of your business now depends on it. And the last 2 years is the most compelling case for change we'll likely ever see. Let me repeat that. The last 2 years is the most compelling case for change we will likely ever see. So I'd like to leave you with 3 ways you can prioritize your own supply chain adaptability, some of which you already heard from Laura Becker of P&G speak about earlier today. First, mastering your data. It is the essential first step to greater visibility so that we can better prepare for what's outside our immediate control. Second, I encourage you to use the global Verified by GS1 registry. Establishing and maintaining persistent identity starts with putting your product data into the registry so that you can ensure accuracy. And it's easy for your trading partners to verify it. And third, if you haven't already, start getting serious about Beyond the UPC Sunrise 2027. 2D data carriers are already here. If you've ever scanned a QR code, you've used one. They represent a huge opportunity to carry more significant content and data than is possible with a UPC. Consider what other information perhaps you'd like to share with a shopper in a 2D code. For example, nutritional content as an example. How about with your retail partners, such as expiration date or lot match codes as examples? It's important that we start collaborating right now to standardize some rules, leading to greater value and avoiding unnecessary complexity and cost. Because our new normal has forever changed the way we work and live. And today's challenges create unprecedented opportunities to reinvent a better future together. So on behalf of industry, GS1 US is here to help. Again, I really, really want to thank you for joining us in San Diego and for your shared commitment to making our organizations and our industries ready for whatever comes next. So now, it is my distinct honor to welcome Mr. Reed Jackson. Sometimes we call him Action Jackson. Our Vice President of Innovation and Partnerships to the stage.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate that. I'm really excited to be here with you all today to announce our winner of our GS1 US Startup Lab Pitch Competition. As some of you know, we aired it live. We aired it live on June 1st, but in case you missed it, here's a little recap.
This year, we hosted the 4th annual GS1 US Startup Lab Pitch Competition, showcasing the top 8 companies chosen from a record number of applicants pursuing disruptive technology innovations that have the potential to leverage GS1 standards to help create value for our members, solution providers, and partners. On June 1st, each finalist delivered a 5-minute pitch in front of a panel of judges for their chance to win cash prizes from a pool of $23,000. Please make sure to stop by the innovation area to watch each company's pitch and network with some of the finalists that have joined us here at GS1 Connect. Now, let's get to know our 2022 finalists. Big Fix is an AI company focused on fashion retail, wellness, and the metaverse, providing mobile body scanning, digital twins, and virtual try-on. Boxes is powering the future of retail by combining physical and virtual technology to democratize convenient, affordable, and sustainable retail. Curie is an API that simplified access to a library of true-to-size, continually improving 3D digital twins for any product GTIN, EAN, or UPC. DU Location Technologies offers precise location as a service through its patented award-winning wireless-based firmware solution that is ubiquitous and ultra-precise. NeuroPixel AI generates lifelike synthetic human models, automates the process of apparel cataloging, and enables virtual try-ons for apparel. Notosphere is a digital platform connecting medical device suppliers and healthcare organizations, enabling direct communication and management of medical recalls. Reach Industries leverages computer vision to augment sciences and make labs more efficient so they can better and faster tackle world challenges. Scrap is a free mobile app that scans your waste items and shows you which bin they go in based on your local recycling rules. And now, join us as we announce the winners of the 2022 Startup Lab Pitch Competition.
You guys nervous? First, I want to thank, on behalf of GS1 US, I want to thank all the startups that applied for this year's competition, along with our distinguished panel of judges, and a special congratulations to the 8 finalists. Please be sure to stop and visit the kiosks that are located in front of the grand ballroom and talk with these startups. Learn more about their solutions and innovations that they're bringing to our world. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for is the announcement of this year's winners. So coming in 3rd place, showcasing incredible innovation in healthcare, is Notisphere. Congratulations to your winner. Recycling as easy as a scan of a barcode on an app. Scrap. Congratulations to Evan Davis and Auntie Rashida. Okay, first place winner for this year's GS1 US 2022 Startup Lab Pitch Competition is a company on a mission to make labs more efficient, tackling worldwide challenges. Congratulations to Reach Industries and Silas Adekunle. Silas had some technical difficulties because he's over the pond and he couldn't get on the Zoom call, but I'm going to take care of this. I will be certain to take care of this. And
why does that make me nervous?
We're audited, Bob. We're audited. This is in good hands.
Yeah. All right. I know our counseling can audited. Participants in the Startup Lab. We learned so much from all of you in these pitch competitions, and also working with your companies. Hopefully you find it mutually beneficial. So thank you very much for joining us in that. And thank you all for wrapping up with me day 2. Listen, we want you to come back tomorrow. And we have a business coach and author joining us, Ryan Leake. If you don't know much about Ryan, I urge you to check him out. He will be a very dynamic, engaging discussion to share his keynote on chasing failure and the bravery to fail, and another full day of session content that we have as well. So now, the only thing standing between drinks and you is me. That's never a good position to be. Join me at the Bayside Bash networking event outside at the Marina Terrace, and as Ron Burgundy would say, you stay classy, San Diego.